What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh. This is Native Nomads, and today what we're going to be discussing is the only auxiliary switch controller you're ever going to need for any type of adventure vehicle. Stay tuned. Before we dive into the Auxbeam 6-gang switch controller, what I want to do is thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Adventure Rig Shop. AdventureRigShop.com is your one-stop shop for all things adventure vehicle related. You can find this product on that website along with many other products. I will put the link in the description for AdventureRigShop.com. Check them out when you are searching for your new lights, bumpers, winches. All of those things will be housed on that website, and it should provide you, I hope, the best shopping experience you can have for your adventure vehicle. So what I've done is I've taken everything out of the box already because I want to show you each piece individually. I'm going to show you how they all go together, and I'm going to explain how easy this thing is to hook up. There are a couple of nuances that you're going to want to pay attention to, and if you've never done any type of electrical vehicle or lighting, wiring, or maybe you're just new to like the whole concept of how to use one of these switch controllers, I'm going to explain how this one in particular works, and I'm also going to explain why I think this one is the best. And the first reason for me right out of the box that I think this is the absolute best switch controller that you could have in your vehicle is simply because of the price. And now I know price isn't everything because sometimes you get what you pay for and sometimes you pay a lot more than what you should for a product that does the same thing as other products do that cost a lot less. And the intent here is not to make you purchase this or have you purchase this. If you'd like to purchase this, the link is in the description. If you don't want to purchase it and you're still looking around, this is a good place to start to get all the information that you need about this particular unit and why I believe, in my personal opinion, it works so well. I'm not saying this because Auxbeam gave me this. I did buy this with my own money. I actually have bought 3 of them. If you guys are new to the channel, then you probably don't know that I have had several vehicles over the years, and previously I was using a different switch controller that was Bluetooth controlled, and I'm not going to mention them because I'm not attempting to bash that system. And if you have it in your vehicle and it works well for you, that's great, but it failed on me in 2 different vehicles. So when I was looking for a solution to fix my problem entirely, I knew that I had to kind of go with a hardwired setup, and that's what this is. Now, the control unit itself, I would call it, it's kind of like the head unit in a stereo. It is the unit that has all of the buttons on it. You'll notice that there are 6 buttons, and each button has a specific purpose for you. This one, I already put a couple of stickers on here. You have your light cubes, and then I had side lights. You can also do a compressor. You can do just pretty much any type of auxiliary component you want can be ran off of this small little unit. Now, I hope that you can kind of see, I'm trying to keep it in focus, how small this unit is. And it works extremely well. It has worked in all conditions, and that is because, for me, it was hardwired. So you will see the little connectors on the end. And now these connectors connect to each other through an extension cable. So the extension cable is about 8 feet long. And if you notice, it has some pins, and this has some holes. This lines up. And I'm not going to be able to do it on camera like I want to, but this plugs in and it has a little screw device on it that keeps everything together. It cinches everything down tight. That way, when you're driving or you're going over rocky roads, this isn't coming loose, and you're able to trust that this connection is safe. Once you have this connection together and your head unit is now connected, you have to then connect it to this unit. Now, this is kind of the brains of, excuse me for going in front of you there. This is kind of the brains of the whole system. Inside this box, you will find your fuses and all of the accessory wiring spots. So your lights get wired directly to here, just your power wire. Your power wire is the only thing you need to wire to this. Your ground then gets grounded somewhere else on the vehicle. Now, That might sound a little difficult to understand if you've never done this. But generally, underneath the hood, by the battery, in every single vehicle, you will find a stud with a nut on it where some type of ground is already placed. Generally, how I wire these up is once it's connected to the battery, and we will get to the battery connection part of this in a moment. Once this is connected to the battery, then I connect all of my powers here individually. So each slot gets its own power wire. Then I take all the grounds and I heat shrink all of the grounds together, put them on a grommet, and put that grommet on the vehicle, allowing all the grounds to be tied in together. That is great because it keeps everything nice and tight and everything is all together the way that it should be, in my opinion. The only issue with that and where that becomes difficult is if you choose to remove a component, you have to disconnect all of your ground wires and reconnect the ones that you're choosing to keep and then connect it back to the ground post on the vehicle. You could also attach these to the ground or negative battery terminal. I don't generally like to do that just because I don't like messing with the battery if I do not have to. I would prefer to use what is being used on the vehicle from the manufacturer, and you can generally find that underneath the hood in any vehicle that you intend to put lights on. So once you have all of your powers connected, there are small screws that you unscrew, toss your power wire in, screw it back down. Make sure it's tight, tug on it a little bit. You could use some type of crimp connector to put in there. I usually just strip the wire back. I fold it back on itself a couple of times, and then I put it in there and drive that screw down on top of it. I like to make it as thick as I can, and generally the wires for auxiliary lights are about this size, and you can see how this is probably, I don't know, an 18 or a 20 gauge wire, so it's very, very thin. So I like to strip it back, double it up on itself a couple of times. That way I know I have a good positive connection in there. And then you want to be careful not to wrench on this too much. You don't have to go He-Man on this screw head trying to get everything to stay connected in there. It generally stays connected without any issues as long as you tighten it up with a normal amount of force. So then the question may become, at least it was a question that I had that I think is important for you to know, is, well, what can I control with this auxiliary switch controller? Well, there are multiple options here for different size pieces of equipment. You have a 5 amp, two 10 amps, two 20 amps, and a 30 amp fuse. And over here, these 6 little boxes, these are your relays. You don't need to worry about those. You'll never touch them. Those are all covered up and fully self-contained in there. You don't have to mess with them. But you may be wondering, well, what pieces of equipment can fit on what fuse? Because if you put a piece of equipment on one of these fuses and it is too many, it's drawing too many amps, it's going to blow that fuse, and then you're going to have to move it to a different fuse. So how can you know what that looks like? Well, on every single pair of lights, on your compressor, on your refrigerator, it all has an amp draw, a max amp draw. And you need to make sure that this fuse is larger than the amp draw that your lights or your refrigerator or your compressor draws, because otherwise it's going to blow the fuse. But that's a protection piece, so this whole system doesn't go kaput in the event that you have something on there that is too powerful for it. But everything that I have had on here, I've had a single compressor on one of these, I have a dual compressor on one of these, I have a refrigerator on one of these, and all of my lights. I generally keep my lights on a 10 amp fuse, I keep my compressors on a 20 amp fuse, and I've never had a need for the 30 amp fuse a single time. I'm not saying that I won't, I just haven't as of yet, but that's a pretty good place to start. Most lights are usually under 5 amps, but you may get some that are a little bit bigger, so I generally use a 10 amp fuse just to be safe, and then my compressors are on the 20, my refrigerators keep on a 10 or a 20, it just depends on how big the refrigerator is or how much power that compressor pulls to keep that refrigerator cool. Okay, so let's talk about wiring this thing up. How in the heck do you make it all work together? Well, I'm going to keep this fairly simple for you because it is fairly simple, and you can overcomplicate it if you tear this thing apart and you start looking at stuff, wondering what the heck to do. It's pretty simple. The instructions are pretty detailed as well, but this video should serve as a way for you to understand without having to read the instructions, which none of us actually want to do. So, this red one right here, this is the only long red lead that you're going to find that is a very thick wire. I don't know the gauge, but it is a thick wire. And it has a battery terminal head already on it. This goes to the power of your battery. That's it. Put that to the power. This is in no particular order, okay? I'm just going through this, so I just don't, not the exact order that I'm saying it, I'm just letting you know that. This is your power. This, well, I don't want to go there yet because that was the most confusing. This is your ground. Your ground is very small. Now, you can choose to put this to the battery, or you can put it on your terminal post that is on the inside of the engine bay of the vehicle, whatever you want. I do the terminal post on the inside of the engine bay, but that's entirely up to you. And then you have your controller switch or your controller cable. This goes into the 8-foot cable, which then goes into your controller, your controller itself. That's simple. The last one that's a little tricky is this red one. There's only one red one. This is the power that controls the backlighting and the power to your actual switch controller. So this is meant for a fuse tap. And if you don't know what a fuse tap is, I'll probably show that to you right now. But this is actually meant for a fuse tap. And they supply a fuse tap in the box with your Auxbeam. The only problem that you may have is the simple fact that this controller in the fuse tap may not fit your fuse box. And then you have to kind of go through and find which fuse is an auxiliary fuse. So the fuse tap connects directly, it replaces your fuse inside your fuse box. Well, now when that is replaced and you find the proper auxiliary switch, the proper auxiliary fuse, the auxiliary fuse that you want to use is something when you turn the button on, it sends power to that fuse. That will then power this system. That sounds super complicated, but it's really not. You just have to know what to look for. So if you take out your owner's manual of whatever vehicle you're trying to place this into, you can kind of go through all the fuses and try to find one that is auxiliary power. Generally, you want to find one that's 10 amp auxiliary power because that's the most common, and you will be able to find one of those fairly easily. You may have to take a fuse out, put a fuse in, try a couple different ones to find the one that works, but that red wire is what controls the backlighting and sends power to that panel. The question you may be having, can you just run this directly to your battery? The answer is yes, you can. The problem with that is your controller will always be on unless you disconnect your battery. So it is going to be in your best interest to either A, find a fuse, or B, run a separate switch that you can control your Auxbeam controller on. That is what I did in the van because in our Sprinter van, the fuses are extremely small. I could not find a fuse tap that was small enough to fit with the fuses inside my fuse box in the Sprinter. So what I did is ran a separate switch that then turns this on when I flip it on, and then I can use this as I need to use it, and I can turn the other switch off when I no longer need it for any off-road light situations. So that's another option that is a bit more intricate, and I'm not going to get into that today. It's not hard. If you've never done it, it probably sounds like a foreign language to you, but that is what I had to do in the van. In the Subaru, it works. I was able to find a fuse that works with the fuse tap that Auxbeam provides to me and to you if you purchase this setup. Now, it's waterproof, it's dustproof, it's shockproof. I have had these units in all three of my vehicles for over a year now. The Subaru has had it for the longest, and if you're shopping for your Subaru Outback Wilderness, this is a great place to start. The one thing that you have to figure out, which if you notice, there is some double-sided Velcro back here. I put that on there because I'm going to be using this myself. But that double-sided Velcro, I put this directly on top of the fuse box in my Outback Wilderness. I ran all my wires through, and then if you're looking for your Wilderness option, you are going to have to get the extension cable ported either through the firewall, which I never do, or through the wiring harness boot on the driver's side door. If you're unsure what I mean, I will put the video of my simple electrical system that I did, the electrical wire running video. That will be up here. That way you can check out what I mean by running that communication cable through the boot on your driver door. That will make things a lot easier for you to probably understand what I'm trying to get at here. But like I said, this has been in a lot of situations, not this particular one, but these units have been in every single one of my vehicles. They have worked flawlessly every single time. I have had absolutely zero issues with them, and I am proud that these are a product that for $139 can control every single auxiliary component inside my vehicle. That's all I have. I hope it was helpful. If it was, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, coming along for more adventures. If you have something that you use that's different than this, maybe it's more expensive, maybe it's less expensive, please leave that in the comments. I'm always looking for new ideas. I would love to bring some new ideas to the channel, show people other options. If this wiring thing is a little bit too difficult for you, that's understandable. There are Bluetooth options, although I have not had the best experience with them. So that is it, and I will see you on the next one.